Hello. I assume we're broadcasting. I think that we are. Hi, this is everybody. This is Patty Wise with Logility. I will introduce myself and my fellow panelists, and then the topic more broadly, and then we'll jump right into things. But welcome everybody. It is a little unusual to be doing a webcast via video where I just see the fellow panelists, and I understand that there are 70 or more of you out there online. So anyway, thank you for joining us today. Again, I'm Patty Wise with Logility. I'm an executive director with us, and that means I'm the executive director of the Nashville area region and market, as well as I'm the executive director of our flexible talent line of services company-wide. So I went to Vanderbilt Law School, practiced with two big firms, started a nonprofit, and then joined Logility about 13 years ago. So I'm going to introduce my fellow panelists, who are all folks who are accomplished, as well as just really nice, personable people that I enjoy working with. Lizzie Schilling, I always want to put a G in your name. Shillum is first. So Lizzie is based here in Nashville, and she's the Director of Legal Operations for Vanderbilt University. She really has helped modernize the legal department here and was brought on as the Director of Legal Ops to do that. Previously, she helped build and lead the legal ops functions and departments for each Nike and Hertz. So welcome, Lizzie. And then we have Dan Deckbar. Dan, do you want to wave so everybody knows? There you go. Hey, Dan.
Yes.
Dan is in Atlanta. He's the Deputy General Counsel of Americold, which is a public company. It's a leading temperature-controlled storage and transportation company. Dan previously was in-house with two other companies, with Precision Boilers and also with Rollins, Inc. And he's also practiced with a large law firm. And then we have Dennis McKinney, who is one of my colleagues at Logility, one of my favorite colleagues, I should say. Dennis currently heads up our Arkansas market, where he has been for the last several years. And previous to that, he was based in Atlanta, where he led our Atlanta market for many years, but he continues to work company-wide with many of our large clients. Trivia on Dennis is that he also clerked for the US Supreme Court. So, okay. I will launch into just kind of a broad overview of our topic, and then we'll start asking questions of our esteemed panelists who have lots of great experience. But we're here to talk about resiliency in these economic times. So what does that mean? It means really personal resiliency, team resiliency, how to lead during these times and have a resilient team, and also economics. What about the economics of this? What can you do to have a resilient team, as well as a resilient budget that has reacted to the demands of these current times? So resiliency itself has been defined as the ability to recover from difficult experiences and setbacks, but not just recover, but to adapt and even grow. There was an article in the New York Times, which I just read this morning, but it came out in the last few days. And it really is about individual resiliency, but it can be applied to all of this, to individual, team, and to your professional resiliency and your budget resiliency. But it talked about a number of factors, including quality of relationships, sense of optimism, a connectedness, and then also having a broader purpose or mission. And I think those are things that are themes that we've all talked about and touched on when preparing for this. And I think staying connected with each other personally, professionally with your teams, with those who are senior to you, those who are junior to you, those who might report to you, your clients. That sense of connectedness is so important. And also the communication of the broader purpose. And along those lines too, one of the tidbits of advice in the article was accept what you can't change. You know, we can't change that we're in a pandemic, but ask what you can change. So I thought those were interesting. So that's just to set the stage. And now moving on to the panel, who we really want to hear from. We'll touch on three main categories. First of all, the resiliency of team. Second of all, the second broad topic will be the resiliency of your budget. And then third, what's the takeaway? What's everybody's individual takeaway or advice? So moving to team, Lizzie, let's kick off with you. If you would share with us, tell us about your team. Who's on it? How many? Is everybody working remotely? And then what's worked during this time?
So we have approximately 22 people on the team. Half are attorneys and half are support staff. 100% of the people are working remotely at this time. Mm-hmm. And we pulled that trigger very quickly. The university announced that we were going to online classes, so we needed to make sure that we were ready to be remote workers and have what we needed. And we're still fine-tuning that with additional printers. Someone needed a stand-up desk. I mean, there's just a few little odd things. We've had a few computer issues that we've had to deal with, but you know, we've dealt with it. And VUIT, our partner in our IT resources, has been wonderful in getting us what we need. We are having weekly meetings with the team members. Our deputy general counsel is meeting with the attorneys each week, both individually and as a group. I am doing the same with our operations team. I talk to them individually if we need to have that conversation, but weekly we have Monday, Wednesday, Friday, half an hour meetings, just check-ins. And we have a lot of fun. They're not always just about business. There are sometimes music videos or just announcements like Hamilton will be on Disney Plus. There's just been a lot of getting to know each other, because at work, you really are focused on the work for the most part. But this has given us a little chance to spend some quality time together. And we've adopted Zoom as our meetings because we had WebEx and it was not working that well for the massive quantity and how many hours a day we were on, on meetings. And so they've done a really good job. The IT department's done a great job in rolling that out and training people and educating people on the best ways to use our webinars and to be able to still be successful with our partners, both in the outside counsel, but our clients at the university as well.
That's fantastic. You know, I remember you shared with me some steps you took to modernize your legal department when you joined Vanderbilt that were initiatives of yours. So some tech setup and upgrades that you did, which then turned out to be fortuitous once everyone went remote. Can you share about that?
Sure. When I arrived, there were still quite a few people that had PCs and not laptops, so they were not mobile. But we changed that within the first 6 months of my arrival. We had an old technology that was preventing us from having new machines, so we upgraded that technology, which is our document management software. And once we were able to do that, then we could move everybody to laptops, and we have Microsoft Surface machines, which are great. And we also had very tiny monitors. And so we upgraded to 32-inch correct ratio monitors, and a lot of people have taken those home with them to use them at home as well. And it was just a fortuitous upgrade of that technology, because if we had still had PCs, we might not have been as successful in quickly moving to a mobile workforce. So it worked out very, very well.
That's fantastic. Great. Yeah, a combination of technology and setting up regular, a cadence of regular meetings, I think really those things have helped with connectedness.
Correct.
So Dan, how about you?
Well, we have a team of 10 in the legal department, and but a little bit back on our company, we have 183 distinct warehouse locations throughout the world, most of which are in North America. And our customers, you know, we have a total of 13,000 associates spread around. And our primary customers are our operating managers and our business development sales team from the team that I manage. And so we're quite used to having remote meetings and phone conferences and business Skype meetings. But the corporate culture has been show up and play here in the office. And so that was quite a transition. We did push out WebEx company-wide. And so far so good. We're having a pretty good experience with it, and we have upgraded every single conference room here in the corporate office with video capabilities that far exceeded what we had before. And we have moved to where half of us are remote all the time and the rest are optional. We never actually issued a stay-at-home order because our focus of our company is providing food logistics and getting, our largest segment is grocery retail support. So we're deemed essential by the Department of Agriculture and exempt from stay-at-home orders. And so a core group of us was always here in the office at some point in our time since the very beginning. And we've balanced that with individual needs. So about half the folks now are still remote and half of us are in the office quite a bit. But having the WebEx introduction and having video meetings has been very helpful. We've been having a 90-minute weekly session, all hands, to deal with the business at hand issues that we have, the new business coming in, any specific issues for the commercial team. And then we'll have an hourly twice a week at lunch, and we'll share our lunch while we're on the meeting and go over kind of a round table, kind of a brief, what's up, what do we need to know about, anything going on I need to know about it, so we have another collaboration later. On top of that, I have a catch-up meeting, you might say, once a week for an hour with each person on my staff, where we can really dig down more into sort of the how's it going, you know, the personal, how are you doing, anything we need to know about, you know, we try to be considerate of the fact that some folks have people in their homes that are maybe small children, or there may be compromised health situations, and we're mindful of checking in with them about that, and that's usually a reason why they don't feel comfortable coming to the office either, as you know, by the guidelines. So. Right.
I love that because for as often as we all have meetings that are agenda driven, which is important to do, I also think during this time that we're remote, taking a minute to say, how are you doing personally? And also, you know, what's your workflow like? Because with us all being remote, it may be difficult for us to discern for our colleagues or for people on our team who may report to us, you know, do they have enough work, the right amount, or too much? You know, how do you do that workflow adjustment? And so I don't know, before we move on to Dennis, for either Lizzie or Dan, is there a way that you have found to help figure out the workflow and workload of your team?
For us, we have a matter management system, LexisNexis Counsel Link, that I can monitor and assign new matters and see who's got what and check on what's going on. But quite frankly, it's more of a conversational, the three of us on the commercial team get together and say who's working on what, and as new business comes through, we assign that based on whether it's at a customer account they worked on before or a business segment they worked on before, and just kind of balance it out that way.
Right.
We have a very similar situation with Simple Legal for matter management, and we run weekly reports to see how many new matters came in, who has them. sometimes, as Patty well knows, we use Legility for outsourcing matters where we just have too many with one attorney and we need some of that lower right-hand quadrant work done. And Legility is a perfect resource for that, so that we can keep too many matters off of each attorney's desk. But I'll tell you, at least at the university level, we have a lot of legal things to deal with at this time. So it continues to be a fight to figure out what the best balance is, and to talk to the attorneys, to talk to the support staff, and really get a feel of, are they feeling overwhelmed? And I think we have a good working relationship. They will call that if indeed that's true.
Great, fantastic, thank you. Dennis, tell us about your team and what you've done to keep your team resilient.
Well, I'm going to basically talk about, our team here, and also pull in some of the ways that we have expanded beyond what our team is doing to what we're doing in connection with the clients, because I think that's pretty important for the resiliency of our teams here. Here in Northwest Arkansas, our corporate group has for a long time worked in a really interesting combination of ways. We have an office here. We also spend, and I did some quick math, I think about 60% of our time we actually spend in our clients' facilities here in Northwest Arkansas. And we also have home offices. So I think it was the combination of all of those work sites that allowed us to make the quick transition to a full stay-at-home, work-from-home environment. That's on our corporate side. On our attorney side, we average somewhere, depending on the week, somewhere between 20 and 56 attorneys working here. And they have, pre-COVID, a large number of them were actually on site here. Then there was an equally large number of them that worked remotely, either at home or in one of our facilities, either in Nashville or Memphis or in Atlanta or Dallas. So the remote attorneys have had very, very little problem transitioning to the full work at home sort of thing. Our attorneys who were actually housed inside our client sites here in Northwest Arkansas, we started preparing them for a potential move and working with their clients very early on in March. I think, the shutdown here in Northwest Arkansas occurred on the 13th of March, and we actually started at the beginning of the month talking with our clients about what was going to happen, because the last thing we wanted to have happen is for them to say, okay, we're going remote, we're not going to be able to transition our Legility attorneys to a remote environment. So we began working early in March, somewhere around the first of the month, actually working with clients on that. I have to say, our transition to work from home has been fairly seamless. And I attribute that to several key factors. The first thing was the high level of communication that we had pre-COVID, whether it would be structured communication like regular conference calls, regular meetings, or whether it was unstructured, where it was just hey, I need to check in with so-and-so, I need to do this, I need to do that. And also we did a lot of that with our clients. So we had kind of set the stage in our earlier existence for a transition to full non-in-person communication. So I think that was really, really critical. The next thing is we opened up some broad lines of communications with the clients in a very, very early stage of this. We thought that we gave everybody a week, and then we kind of descended and said, hey, listen, we think the dust is beginning to settle after a week, but we think the dust is beginning to settle. And so now we want to open up some regular lines of communications, not only with you and our attorneys, but also with us. And we know that you have a lot of things going on right now. And so we want to, as a company, take some of that off of you by doing regular calls, regular check-ins. Most of our clients, we have a weekly call with them now. We're also sending much more extensive reporting to our clients. They're getting financial reports. They're getting progress reports. They're getting just regular check-ins from us saying, hey, listen, we know that this is going on, this is going on. How are things going on from your perspective? So that has been really critical for us too, because that has made our clients as well as our attorneys feel like, hey, we're all one big machine that's grinding out what we've got to do. And by grinding out, I mean delivering a great quality product for our in-house clients. And that has been really rewarding for everybody involved in that. And I got to say, the segue to Zoom was relatively easy because we suddenly realized that, you know, we like seeing everybody. So it's been fun. We tried to make them lighthearted because one day I had 7 of them in a row. I was pretty exhausted by the end of the day, but it was, you know, we kind of keep it lighthearted, but very informative and very to the point. So I didn't have 7 hours. I had 7 Zooms that were to the point because people like to it's just like a regular call, in and out very quickly. Secondly, I think it was our very strong tech structure. Most of you who have had any dealings with Legility for any amount of time know that we have been a very tech-centric company, and we look at the practice of law from a technological perspective. So, you know, particularly here in Northwest Arkansas, our attorneys who were working remote already had Legility-issued laptops. It was very easy for us when we knew that our attorneys were moving on to work from home status, that we could give them Legility laptops. And in most instances, they would be working through a Legility secured technology space behind the scenes. And then in early 2020, we put VMAR on the map with us. And that gave, if any of the clients were worried about the security of our attorneys working from home, that secure platform gave them complete comfort in that going forward. And the final thing I think that has been truly advantageous for all of us is the great degree of trust that we brought to this experience. You know, there's not been a lot of micromanagement. And as a result, our attorneys are just delivering amazing quality of work right now. Our clients are likewise delivering tremendous quality. One of our larger clients here during one of our regular calls told me that they have seen a 40% increase in the productivity of their legal department during this work from home status. So I think that the trust that people are going to do great work and going to do the best work they possibly can under what are very trying conditions, it goes a long way in building that. The last thing I want to do, and I know I went over a little bit over my time here, is that one of our clients did something really unusual. They had a workforce that was pre-COVID was very anti-work from home. You know, I dare say if you know, your house could be on fire and if you left to go tend to it, some of the people in that department would kind of look askance at you at leaving in the middle of the day. And so there was a great degree of trepidation about how this was going to work amongst the legal department management. And it turned out that they did something that is going to sound kind of weird, but as soon as everyone got home, they signed off on Friday the 13th and signed back on Monday in their new home office situation. And so over the weekend, the management of the legal department had the very nice desk chairs for each of their attorneys delivered to their homes. And that did so much to kind of set the stage for, hey, we're all in this together. We understand that this is not the best of circumstances from your vantage point, but we're going to do what we can as an organization to help you adjust to this. And as a way of getting us started off right, here's your desk chair. And I thought that was very clever. And I got to tell you, it went a long way toward assuaging a lot of the fears and I just don't want to do this that was prevalent in the early days.
Yeah, I love that story. Yeah, I can't tell you the number of clients I've spoken with over the last month or two that have said, you know, we were strictly a work from office team or company. And of course we were forced to do this. And this is, you know, it turns out we were wrong. You know, we've done a 180 on this. Work can continue because it's had to continue. We've had to figure it out from a technology standpoint, from a communication standpoint. How do we serve our internal clients? How do we serve our external clients? How do we do it all via telephone? What technology can we leverage? So not just the telephone and email, but you know, the knowledge, the different forms of matter management systems. I love the connectedness via everyone having their office chair. That could possibly be a good thing for me. I know that at home I have more of a fashion chair, and since I have been working from home, I have back issues now suddenly. So you know, maybe I need to swap this out for something that's more ergonomic. But anyway, if that's the right word, I think it's ergonomic, but something that really is more back friendly for me. So thanks, Dennis. So turning to economics here. So we all had to work on team resiliency. Every one of us did, and we reacted in different ways, which has been fantastic. But also, as we know, for every one of us, for everybody out there, even the companies like the Amazons of the world, I'm sure, who have had to increase grocery stores, which have had to increase. We all had to freeze for a minute, for a week, for 2 weeks, for a month, and see how would this impact our business, because so many things stopped on a dime. You know, airline travel, in-person retail, in-person restaurants. So even though at Legility, even though so many of our attorneys were already remote, and those who weren't were able to pivot to a remote setup pretty easily, we also had to say, how will this impact our business? Will we increase? Will our services be put on hold? So we all had to wait and see, how will this impact us? And I know for each of you, you know, Lizzie being with the university, suddenly students couldn't be on site. Dan, I know you have different divisions of your department, and so they've all been impacted in different ways. But from a budget and economic standpoint, what have you each been able to do to remain nimble or to adjust? And some of your methods might be something you put in place pre-COVID that, again, is fortuitously working out well now. But some may be things that you had to pivot and reduce your legal spend post-COVID. So who wants to kick that off?
Come on. So
Great.
One way that, as a company, again, that COVID has affected us is that it's Christmas every week, right? So we have never been busier. And so in addition to having a very robust growth program that includes both M&A and actual dirt building development, we have to step up and have what is usually a slow time of year after Easter. People don't really eat again until 4th of July, it seems. So we had to take what was usually a slow time and support the transactions team, support our other growth initiatives to support our customers who had to put food on the shelves, right? So we did a couple of different things. The first thing we did was sort of push the clutch in on non-essential, non-critical projects The court system helped us out with that a little bit, right? Well, we don't have a whole lot of litigation, thank goodness, but with courts being slower closed, we saved an awful lot of money on some large cases that the activity dried up on.
Mm-hmm.
We are, as I said before, our corporate culture had been an in-person, face-to-face culture for the most part, but at a certain level. And so we did a lot of traveling. My Delta Diamond status is thankfully being carried over, but I haven't been on a plane since March the 13th myself, and neither has anyone else in my department. So our travel budget, which is usually pretty robust, we haven't spent much on. What we have spent some money though on is when people are in the office, we try to bring lunch in. We had Thai Thursday last week, try to make it easy for folks. We're helping them save money on dry cleaning by saying just wear jeans, so we've done a few little things like that. We've also had to use, give Legility a plug here too. We've always had some overflow work that we've had an on call, you might say, from the old days, attorney that would help us with overflow transactions, and we have ramped that up. And thankfully, he has a home office of his own here, and that's been seamless to take the low-hanging fruit, the easy transactions that just take someone else's time away from our team, so we can concentrate on the things that couldn't be outsourced. So those are sort of the ways that we've done it, and we try to piece together who's the best and most economical person to do this work. Is it outside counsel? Is it a Legility attorney? Is it us? Or can it wait?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think you really hit the nail on the head, which is in looking at a budget, having to evaluate each item with those options in mind and allocating the right work to the right resource at the right price point. And if you go through your budget like that with more of a fine-tooth comb, you can really move the needle and reduce your legal spend. I do also appreciate, I know everyone has the circumstantial ways in which we've been able to reduce spend, like no travel and courts being closed. So I think that's been a really good win for a number of companies. So Lizzie, how about with you?
Well, at the university, we were requested to have a 10% reduction in our budget, and we have 5 days left in our fiscal year. So that starts next week. And what I did previous to the COVID situation, we did an RFP with many of the law firms that we previously used, but also some new law firms. Excuse me. And we decided that we would go back to the law firms that we chose as our network and ask them, hey, we have a 10% reduction that we have to look at in our overall budget. What suggestions do you have for us? They came back with some amazing ones. Excuse me. And we're really excited to proactively train attorneys to use some best practices from the operations teams of some of the law firm network that we have in place, and to realize some of those savings. But I will tell you that litigation has increased in the university space. Title IX regulations have just been released by the Department of Education in the middle of this, and we have a whole new team to build from that. So we will struggle to meet those requirements, but we will at least sharpen our pencils while we're doing this to ensure that we're doing the best work possible and working with our law firm network to save as much money as possible on the day-to-day operations of a matter, but as well as being more productive with the teams that we have in place and what to outsource, what to keep inside. And as Dan said, what to put on hold because we don't have to deal with it at this moment. So we are looking at that for the individual matters that are coming in and trying to figure out how best to communicate that to the university as well. Through metrics and through analytics, we're trying to advise the vice chancellors on what's driving costs for particular matters or particular issues that exist and how the legal department is working on that.
Right. I love that. I so appreciate and respect how you went to your various partners and said, can you brainstorm with us about ways to reduce our legal spend? And really, that's a different, more collaborative approach than a more draconian approach of, hey, everybody, we're paying 10% less, period. So, there are times out there where companies have done that, and maybe they're in financial distress, and those are their circumstances. But I really admire and respect that you went to each of your go-to partners and brainstormed with them and asked for, what creative ideas do you have as to how we can reduce our budget in the next fiscal year, which is coming up in a few days. And the other thing I'm gonna tell a story on Lizzie, which I hope she doesn't mind, which kind of a bragging point, which is something she did in her early days, being in her legal ops role, is she really started doing an internal audit, if you will, for lack of a better word, but an assessment of what areas of law do we have, in which do we have the most needs? So, and I'll just name off, not specific to you, but just hypothetically, real estate, employment, commercial contracts, healthcare contracts, whatever. And you really came up with those top 10 needs. And so I think it was really an interesting approach. I don't know that I've seen other in-house legal folks, legal departments come up with by topic or subject matter expertise that list, and then evaluate a go-to partner within each subject matter area. So or more than one go-to partner. So I really, I thought it was very, it's just a different way of thinking, and a different way to prepare for what might come down the road. If you already know you have a lot of X type of legal work, commercial contracts, what are your go-to resources for day-to-day? What are your go-to resources for bandwidth if you have a spike? And what are your resources in case you have, certain areas of expertise needed for short-term within those? So I think that you're really tactical about how you approached that, and I like that subject. It's less reactive and more proactive planning. So
I like that collaboration model, because there are times that I have to rely on my law firm network to give me good information, and I really like to be able to pick up the phone and feel like that we have this collaboration that really extends beyond just legal work. We all want to do better, and we chose partners that had operational excellence that could drive that. So I really appreciate the network that we have and what they bring to the table. And we try to be as transparent with them as possible about what we're struggling with, so that we can really have that honest, open conversation.
Fantastic. Dennis?
Well, there's been a tremendous amount of activity with respect to cost containment, and I guess the best way to look at it is there are some clients who are doing extremely well during this time period, and there are some clients who are really struggling with their business model right now. And so I kind of wanted to touch on both of those. One of the things that we have seen is, because of this tremendous and rapid adoption of work from home, there is no longer the stigma that is attached to not being in the office, being remote. And as a result, there are many, many opportunities that we have for much more expansive work with our clients. Because it used to be where some of our clients were like, oh, well, that's a highly specialized type of work. I need to either hire someone, or I need to go to one of my tall tower law firms to find that expertise. knowing that we had similar attorneys who were not in our office here in Northwest Arkansas or even in Atlanta in some instances when I was there, who had that type of expertise. The removal of those physical boundaries has certainly opened up a lot more opportunities for our clients. And in opening up those opportunities, every time they do that, that being defined as coming to us and saying, hey, can you find me an attorney, or do you have an attorney who does X, Y, and Z? It saves them on at least a half, if not 2/3 of the amount that they would have spent on that otherwise. So that has been a really eye-opening experience for us over here, is seeing how quickly our clients have moved to that adopted model. The other thing is that we have seen on the other side of the coin, we've seen a lot of our clients who their legal departments are in a situation of having to respond not only to the crisis created by COVID, but also respond to the crisis presented by the business model, the pressures on their company's business model. That has been a very painful thing to witness. It's very similar to the same type of thing that we've witnessed in 2008 with the recession then. There were a lot of business models that were under a tremendous amount of pressure. And the question becomes, what do I do when my CFO comes in and unilaterally says that I'm decreasing your legal spend by X amount? And you have to respond. Well, one of the things that we have found to be very, very useful in that situation is to basically take a massive map of where your work is coming from, what areas within your company are giving you the most work, and what does your staffing, your legal department staffing model look like, and overlay that, and then overlay, okay, where are the peaks and valleys in that work going to occur? And basically really looking significantly at your staffing model as overlaid with the work and how the work is going to peak and valley during that time period. And even more importantly, looking at where your staffing is going to be reduced, not through acts of the company, but reduced via departures and other naturally occurring events. And how are you going to manage that? Change the default is my message on that. Change the default, because the default at that point is to pick up the phone and call outside counsel and have them fill in, because we see that in many instances the work is not going to go away. The work is still going to be there. It's still going to have to get done. And in some instances, when you do this overlay, you're going to see that the work is actually going to increase. As you have pressure on your business in one area, the work in a particular area is going to naturally increase, and people are going to have to do that work. And it gives you a realistic idea of where those peaks and valleys are and how you're going to respond. So back to changing the default. Don't think that in order to get this work done, you have to look at calling outside counsel, because that's going to be very expensive and you're going to miss your number that the CFO has dictated to you. So we encourage you to look at alternative ways of getting that work done, whether it's looking at Legility's flexible talent, but also looking within your own talent model in-house. How do you have other people who might have expertise whose work level is going to go down, which you'll be able to see when you look at the overlay? And can they possibly shift over and take some work there? We had a client recently who had was looking at reducing the size of one of their small groups within their department. And instead of doing that, they began to look at where can we shift the talents that reside in that small group over to other areas within the department that we are in a hiring mode for. Mm-hmm. And so that had the benefit of reducing the expense of bringing new people on, taking a wealth of knowledge that existed within that small group and using it in another area. They had company history that they could take with them. So we're really encouraging people to do that. One of the other things we've seen is we have a lot of clients who have very, very big, large sub-departments within the legal department, very large in some instances. I mean, one of our clients in Dallas has 790 attorneys. So they have a lot of large sub-departments within the legal department. A lot of those organizations are breaking those larger subgroups down into smaller subgroups and giving them responsibility not only for getting the work done within their specialty, but also looking at what is the budget within their specialty and how can they manage to that. And that's another way that we're seeing clients save a tremendous amount of money.
That's fantastic. That's really great. Yeah, I do think that during this time, some divisions within a company may be busier than others, and being able to reallocate from within, you know, if all court proceedings are put on hold, being able to, you know, how can you retool teams, people, resources to help out the company or the law firm as a whole right now. So Dennis, thanks. I always appreciate hearing your examples since you work with so many of our large clients across the country. Audience members, don't forget, you may go on, I think it's a chat message and type in a question if anyone has a question for one of the panelists. But I'll turn now towards kind of a wrap up unless we get in questions from others. But I guess I wanted to ask each panelist two things. One is what do you see as far as long-term changes go? Like what might have been new during this time that could be a long-term change? And also what are your takeaways or what's your advice that you would give to others to how do you stay resilient during these economic times? Lizzie, let's kick off with you.
Well, I think the number one thing that we have learned, we have an incredibly supportive general counsel who has allowed us to work from home and to get what we need to be successful at home. And we always worked from the office. There was very little remote work happening. I think our model will change. And I don't have evidence of this, but I believe that we will have some options that when it's easier for them to work from home, they may do so. We don't have any date that we are returning to the office. The students are returning on August 24th, but through September, October, we know that we will not be returning at all. So I think it gives everyone a little bit of flexibility, and that flexibility makes people feel that they're very valued. And, you know, as with everything, this too shall pass, hopefully. And, you know, we'll figure out what that workforce looks like. But I think it does give people a little bit more ownership in their daily schedule. We have some people that do come in from a long way, and their drive time is incredibly long. So that may save all sorts of things in time and in money if people are able to work from home as they're comfortable. And then hopefully the office will work, you know, sometimes we'll all be together again as well. So I think that we are resilient and that we will figure this out.
Yes, yeah. I did note in the news that a number of the big tech companies on the West Coast are saying we may never go back to the office in the way we did previously. And in fact, we may reduce as permanently as many as 50% or more on site. So I think commercial real estate is, you know, talking about how businesses may be impacted. Commercial real estate is going to be impacted in a big way with this. And in some ways, maybe companies and entities like the university may find ways to be really even more productive. And we'll see how that impacts what's required or needed really on site versus remote going forward. So Dan, how about, what are your thoughts?
I agree completely. And, you know, one of the few things Atlanta's famous for is our traffic. So
oh gosh,
we have people who are in much better moods working triply from home rather than dealing with 2 hours in the car. And I think that we're seeing like Dennis said about his other client, I hope he wasn't talking about us, that we were adamantly come to the office, and that was from the top, not necessarily the top of the legal department, but top management of the organization, who didn't really know until he saw it himself and experienced himself that it could happen this way, and that work can get done when you're not in the office. And we have, and I do believe that we are going to completely embrace this new view, and people will have flexibility that they didn't have before. And we are actually replanning as we speak our 3 floors of office space here, because we were planning to take a 4th floor, and actually we didn't sign the lease papers and said, let's take a look back and see how much space we need. And they determined there were 100 positions in the home office that work effectively at home. And so we're redoing our office floor plan. My 2 paralegals have decided they would like to office share. And so we're redesigning with what's in that office as far as flexibility of occupants. And so that'll be a cost saver. And we're having conversations now about, I will be in the office on Thursday rather than I will be out of the office on Thursday.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's sort of flipped, and the stigma is gone, you know, of working from home or not being actually physically in the office.
Yes.
And I think that's permanent.
I agree. And, you know, lawyers and legal departments, we're all such traditionalists. And so I think that we've felt that need to be on site. I think we were probably the last profession that moved to not having to wear jackets and ties to work. You know, after a while, we looked at our tech counterparts and thought, hey, they dress more casually and they still get their work done. So we're such traditionalists in the legal field. I do think it would take a world event like this for us to realize that, you know, working from home can be just as productive and successful. And so I've enjoyed watching companies, teams, and individuals kind of do that 180 pivot and change their minds on the ability to be successful with that. It also, the other thing I'll say about the West Coast tech companies, when I was reading that they're reducing their on-site commercial real estate permanently, is they said this is really going to open up their ability to source talent nationally. And they no longer have to look to hire the best person either locally or willing to move, but they can now and will now work with anyone, anywhere, who's the best qualified, regardless of geography. And I really personally appreciate that approach. I think that whenever a client would call and say, hey, I need an environmental attorney 10 hours a week. Oh, but I want them in my city. That's going to limit our pool of candidates for them. But if they're okay with remote, it just opens up the national database from Legility. So I've always appreciated those who were willing to work with remote attorneys and really have loved watching the mental transformation for all of us. Hey, Dennis, what do you want to add in?
Well, that reminds me, I once had a client, we were looking for someone to do some work for them that was fairly specific, and when we were discussing the qualifications and on-site or off-site, and she looked at me and she said, Dennis, I don't care if they're in a barn in snowy Idaho. If they're the right person for the job, that's the one I want doing my work. Well, it just so happened we found somebody on a farm in Iowa to do that work, and she does grant reviews for a very large foundation and has been doing it for 10 years now. So I love that. I absolutely love that. But one of the things, you know, we've been hearing the new normal, the next normal, as ways of looking at what's happening here. And I actually prefer next normal, because the new normal is only as good as maybe a couple of weeks, particularly nowadays. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna see a series of normals normals. It's going to be what's the next normal that we're going to be looking at. And when I was looking at this question, Patty, I was trying to think about what is the one thing that I think we should really focus on for right now. And, you know, there's a lot of things that are new for us, you know, remote work, space requirements, returning to the office, communication protocols, technology, Zoom is new for me. There's just a lot of things that are new. And I'm hearing a lot about space and, you know, just like you just talked about. And so when I look at that, I think to myself, you know, there's going to be a lot of the things that we think are changes that are going to be long-term that may not work out that way. We had a client just today that announced that beginning in a couple of months, they're going to return to the office at a 50% capacity. So when you look at that, you think to yourself, oh, well, maybe it's not as permanent as I thought. But the one thing that I think that is really critical for us as legal professionals, and as in many instances, management of legal departments, that we have to take away from this is the things that we have learned about our department's capability of responding to a business crisis. Mm-hmm. This is a crisis, as we know, that's much bigger than any of our individual businesses or any of our individual departments. But the thing that we have got to learn from this is how do we as legal professionals make our departments much more agile, much more nimble. I mean, I applaud you, Lizzie, for having the foresight to start making changes so that people could have laptops to go, so that you didn't have to worry about that when you were worrying about all these other myriad things for that. So when I think about what is the most important takeaway from where we are right now, I think it has to be that we have learned how to make our departments more responsive to things that we don't anticipate. How do we make them more responsive to things that we should be thinking about, but we have so many other things on our plate that we have to learn and that we have to know and that we have to respond to. I think being nimble, being agile, being capable of when something comes down the pipe, whether it be a business crisis or another stage in this horrible pandemic that we're going through, whatever it is, take away the things that has made your department perform admirably and wonderfully during this time period. Nurture those, grow those, so that the next time that something comes up, you will have all of that expertise to fall back on. So when I think about long term, that's the one thing I hope that does stick with us for a long term.
I think that's great big picture advice, Dennis. And you know what, being nimble is exactly it, because if your answer to any specific function or task or big picture way to get things done is we do it this way because it's the way we've always done it, it's time to rethink it. You know, what can you do? What should you do to be nimble? What can you or should you do to update it, to be more current with your technology and your manner of thinking? Is there a pilot you could run? Is there an evaluation you could do? What do you do to continually stay nimble? My big picture, and I liked your next normal thing part too, because, you know, if we all think about it, what happened immediately towards the beginning of March is even different than what's happening this month. I think in March, many corporations froze. And then what I'm hearing now from everybody is, you know, we're full steam ahead. We're working. We're busy. We have a full plate, and we froze that first week, but that's not the case anymore. So anyway, I think that every week, every month is different. And my overall message is connectedness in whatever fashion works for you and your team, as well as sharing the big picture mission. And that very much can be sharing the big picture mission about the economics, your goals. Share that big picture You know, what are the budget goals? Share it with your department, get their buy-in, their input, help them move the needle with you, and then also your external partners. What ideas do they have to help you achieve your mission? So connectedness and big picture mission, I think, are always key. But thank you everybody so much I'm going to look at the time. It's 1 o'clock Central on the dot. So thank you all of our remote folks who dialed in to listen today. And there was one question I just saw this now, one question in the queue, but I must have missed it. Sarah, I don't see it. My apologies if someone asked a question. Feel free to email it to me or to anyone on the panel directly. Dennis mentioned that a client had 40% increase in productivity during quarantine. Has anyone had to address unplugging burnout issues? So yeah, that is I don't know if we should keep going or if people have to log off. Dennis or Dan or Lizzie, I don't know if you want to address what to do if you have an increase in productivity. What do you do with any, have you had to address someone who's overworked or has burnout?
I would just like to say that we see attorneys working longer and longer hours because their laptop is right next to them at home. Mm-hmm. And previously they would come into the office to work. They didn't work from home, even though they could on the weekends or something, but they would always come to the office. But now their laptop is there all the time. So we do remind them, take a walk, watch something educational for professional development, take breaks. And I think everybody needs that reminder, because even myself, I'm finding that I'm checking email at 10 o'clock at night, and we don't really need to check email at 10 o'clock at night. So it's just it's a different mindset working from home versus working in the office.
Yes, hard to have those boundaries.
It is.
Yeah, we're encouraging people to take their summer vacations, even though no one's taken a day off in so long, that we're actually going to people and say, look, you need to go ahead and take some PTO. And we're being very mindful to cover for each other so they can actually relax. I think I took my first real vacation in a long time just last week. So we're covering for each other that way.
Yes. Great. Yeah, it's funny, early on in quarantine, when someone said, oh, I'm taking the day off, I sort of chuckled to myself and thought, well, what does that mean? And what does that look like? But now that this has gone on for months and there's no end in sight necessarily, more and more people are doing it, and it's so needed for our mental health and our freshness with regard to our productivity as well, is to not get burnout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, well, thank you. We're over 1 o'clock now, but I'm glad we got the opportunity to answer that question. If anyone who has dialed in has any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to us directly. And thank you so much to all three panelists for sharing today. You guys all have such great practical and helpful day-to-day work work to share with us. So thank you very much.
Thanks,
Stay
everybody.
nimble, everyone.
Thank you.
Good to see
All
you
right.
all.
Bye-bye.